Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Steve Down and this is my guitar. If you have been following along, this is the 5th episode in a series looking at Blues for Willarene by Grant Green. If you are watching in real time, this is the first week of January, so Happy New Year to everyone who's been following along. And thanks for bearing with me whilst I had a break. So this week we delve into the last two choruses of the solo, and then next week the last lesson on this will be taking a look at some ideas for comping over the top of the Hammond organ solo. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, then just as a quick introduction, what we do here is we take a solo by a well-known jazz guitarist or jazz musician, and we learn the solo, but not only learn it as a party piece, we actually dissect it a little bit and look at the rhythm, harmony, and melody, and any other concepts that could help you to be able to navigate the same tune or a similar tune. So we take it apart and give you some useful tips and to be able to understand some of the concepts so you can use them yourself. I'd like to say a big thanks to my patrons who've been supporting me all the way along for this. So I'm just going to read out all of the names of the people who've joined in the last month. So thanks to Clay Stauffer, Daniel Bouchard, John Collier, Wentao Jiang, Hugo Wilson, Stephen Benstetter, Mike Erlinson, Finn Heath, Pompey, GC, David Dugas, Ian Cowan, Casper Paulson, and Paul Callahan. Big thanks to some of the VIP guys who signed up. I'm looking forward to seeing you this month online for your lessons. If you want to support me, Patreon is the best place to do that, and if you support me you get the added benefits of having the backing track that I've created for this, especially with Matt Carter and Joe Harris on Hammond organ and drums. And you also get the full transcription of this track, all of the arpeggio, chord, scale packs and exercise packs that go along with each lesson, and you get all of the stuff from the previous series as well. If you want to support me in a one-off fashion, then there's a buy me a coffee link below, which is cool. And then also just don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, as that helps people to be able to see the video in the algorithm. So this week we're taking a look at some pivot notes, some first inversion arpeggios in the solo, some chromatic ideas, and then also Grant takes his last chorus using just 3 notes, which is pretty insane. So we're going to look at how he does that. I'm going to give you some ideas about how you might be able to do that in your solos as well. So let's take a look at the first of the last 2 choruses. Okay, so the first thing to observe straight off the bat is this use of a pivot note where he starts with this. Okay, so the pivot note is basically a note that is common all the way throughout that. He's pivoting off that, and every other note that he's playing, he always comes back to the original notes. The original note is B flat, and then he's going A flat to B flat, G natural to B flat, G flat to B flat, F natural to B flat, E flat. So, okay, and then resolves it with a really nice BEBOP line at the end, leading to E flat in the bar 114. So pivot note, basically take a note which is common. Probably the best note to take if you're just starting off on this is to use something strong like a tonic or a major third or minor third if it's a minor chord, and then find other notes around that. And usually the best way of doing this is to play your pivot note and then select another note and then go down chromatically as it creates some tension like this. So he's gone from the flat 7 right chromatically down to the 5th, and then to the 4th, and then from there he's resolving to the major third there. So he's heading all the way down to resolve on the major third there. That's kind of his idea in his head, I think. But if you're just starting off, then the best idea is to probably take the tonic and then have a chromatic idea on a different string, starting on a different note and rising up, and then have some kind of resolution. So here's another example using the same pivot note, so B flat. Here I'm starting on the major third and moving up. Okay, going from major third to 4th, and then to a sharp 4, the blue note, which is quite a common thing, and then resolving it. Okay, so have a go at this, and then maybe try and come up with some of your own ideas as well. So there's another thing to note in that bar, the back end of 112 and 113, is that he's using some F Dorian ideas again, which is cool. This is something he's done earlier in the solo as well. So go back through the other lessons and you'll be able to see what he's doing. But using some ideas from a different scale that is diatonically contained within the parent scale gives you an access to a bit of a more sophisticated kind of sound. So F Dorian over the top of a B flat 7 chord will give you a bit more of a sophisticated sound. And so then we resolve down to the 4 chord, the E flat 7 in bar 114. So this bar of 114 is fairly standard, just using the E flat Mixolydian scale. But one thing I did want to point out here and just give you an exercise for is the fact that he's using a second inversion arpeggio of the E flat 7 chord. So basically, first inversion is basically where you start on the second note of the arpeggio rather than the first. So rather than starting your lines off of the tonic, you start it off of the second note from the arpeggio. So that would be the major third in this case. So you can see that he starts off here. So it starts on the G natural there, and this just gives you, I think the major third, and most musicians do think the major third is a little bit more descriptive and sophisticated sounding to start a phrase off with, because the tonic obviously exists with the minor and the major chord tonalities. So a major third actually describes the chord better. So if you're looking to make the changes and describe the chord, then using a major third is better. And that's, I think, why Grant uses it here. So here's the first inversion arpeggios for the E flat 7 and the B flat 7. And then I've done a little example using the idea of starting on first inversion arpeggios over this particular sequence. So have fun with that, use it yourself, and then I would encourage you to come up with your own ideas using first inversion arpeggios. So here's that. The next bit is really interesting. So that's bar 116 and 117. So that really cool bluesy chromatic line there that I just played from bar 116 all the way through to 119 contains an awful lot of chromaticism in there. So chromaticism is basically where you select notes that are not within the scale. So the scale that we're using here is the B flat Mixolydian scale. So that's this. So the scale that we're using here is the B flat major scale, and that's this. And then he's filling it in chromatically. So he's putting in notes that are not contained within that scale to create some tension. And usually it is on the offbeats. So on the onbeats, you'd have all of the diatonic notes from the scale. And then on the offbeats, you'd have the chromatic notes to create some tension that would then be resolved in the next note by a diatonic note. So you can see he starts off with a major third. And then, okay, that's a really nice kind of like Charlie Christian-y kind of like jump blues kind of idea. And what he plays after that starts on a diatonic ninth, and then they go on the offbeat going to a flat 9, there to the root, okay, and that there is it is diatonic there, the major 7, but in this context, remember in a blues we're using a dominant chord, so that would be a flat 7. So really that major 7 there is gonna sound a little bit out over the top of a B flat 7 chord. So we'd call that an out note as well. And then resolves in the next bar to a G, which is kind of cool because the chord underneath is the 6th chord, which has been made into a secondary dominant. So that's a nice diatonic note there, the G. And then going from there, we've got another chromatic note going into G flat, and then resolving onto the 5th, the F, and then this is all diatonic down here. Okay, so through the E flat, the D, so the 4, the major third, and then the 2nd. So down to another chromatic note, not necessarily on an offbeat here, it's on beat 4, and it's on the front half of beat 4. But here he's doing some enclosure. Okay, so going from the B natural here up through to the D natural, which is the major third. Okay, but resolving in the next bar in 118 onto the C, and that is cool because that's the chord of C minor 7 that we've got there. And we've got some pivoting there. So the pivoting note be the G there. And then some more chromaticism. Okay, so going through from F to F flat to the E flat there, or F, E natural, E flat. And then again going from the ninth note, the G, over the top of an F7 chord, through the chromatic note of the next one, and then onto the major third, and then, okay, and it's all diatonic from there. But this is a good example of a use of kind of like the bebop language here, where we're trying as best as possible to get chromatic notes on the offbeat. So and then, you know, it's a nice idea there at the end with the arpeggio. And then same idea, but just on the E flat. Okay, and then resolving into the flat third, which is for the next chorus. But having a good idea of the chromatic passing notes is always really good if you want to add in some bebop. It's just instant bebop if you add in the chromatic notes on the offbeats. So here's another example of me using chromatic notes over the same chord sequence for you to have a go at, and then I would have a go at using your own chromatic ideas. So remember to start with the diatonic scale, then fill in with the chromatic notes, and then start adding those on the offbeat when you're playing your line. Okay, so let's take a look at the last chorus that he plays before the organ solo. Okay, so this chorus is mostly made up of 3 notes. He does use a couple more than 3 notes to begin with, but it's mostly made up of 3 notes for the majority of this chorus. And that's what I want to focus on, is the fact that you can get away with playing 3 notes, a 3-note idea, and just varying it in various different ways throughout 12 bars, and this will maintain a listener's interest. It's actually a good use of rhythmic tension and melodic tension there as well, without having to use any altered notes or understanding any complex harmony, because the listener is hearing the same 3 notes over and over again, and it's not that they're getting annoyed, but they do want you to kind of resolve it somehow and move on to something new. So there is some tension there. So if you reach a payoff in the right place, which is, you know, what Grant does here, then it's going to be really beneficial to your solo hitting home and really striking a chord, no pun intended, with the listener. So what he's doing here, there's no kind of, I don't think there's any kind of rhythmic devices, so to speak. I've pulled a couple of things out of there to show you in an example in a second, but I don't think he's thinking necessarily consciously. I think he's using his ears for all of this, and he's thinking in the moment. So he's basically starting off with this idea. So he's using those 3 notes to begin with. So it's like an idea that he's elongating. And that's kind of an idea that is executed and then resolved within the first 2 bars. And then he moves on to another idea. So this is the idea here that he stretches out for the rest of the chorus. So you can see there that it's this whole idea of sliding up from the D flat, the flat third, up to the 4th. So really bluesy minor pentatonic vocabulary. So there's nothing kind of really weird and wacky going on here. There's no kind of altered language going on here. It's literally just the minor pentatonic scale and these 3 notes and the articulation of the slide between the flat third and the fourth. So this is the idea that he's using, and like I said, I don't think he's thinking consciously, oh, I'm going to use this rhythmic device and this rhythmic device. He's just using his ear here, I think, because it doesn't strike me that it's that contrived here. It just feels really natural. And then finishes off the last 4 bars. So there's that payoff that I was talking to you about. So, and that's a really cool idea, using the minor pentatonic and the blues scale as well. So they're going down. So they're going through the fourth to head towards the major third, which is a really cool resolution. So you can see there that that's a really great payoff there. So something like that to pay off your solo and land the plane correctly after using 3 notes for the majority of the chorus is going to go down really well. So it's well worth doing that. And I've come up with an exercise where I've used 3 notes, these 3 notes, just in this position. I've done it for 4 bars. Why not have a go at completing what I've started there, the 4 bars? And you could always, if you're in the Patreon group, you could always post on the Facebook group you completing those that chorus, starting with the 4 bars that I've given you, and use those same 3 notes and have a nice little payoff at the end. That would be great to see for any of my patrons that are watching, and I can give you some feedback on there as well. So here's the exercise. Feel free to use this on your own solos, but I would encourage you to select your own 3 notes, taken from the minor pentatonic to start with if you're new to it, or some other scale if you're a little bit more advanced, and try elongating it throughout the entire 12 bars, and just make sure you pay off really well. Okay, so thanks for following along with this lesson. As I said, next week is going to be the last lesson. We're going to take a look at comping ideas over the top of the organ solo. I'm not going to transcribe exactly what Grant does on there, but we're going to take a few ideas as to what he does, just so that you've got something that's a bit more natural and not so contrived. And you'll have some ideas to be able to comp over blues solos, either over this one or over ones that you play with your friends or at gigs and stuff. So thanks for watching along, and thanks for your patience as I took a break over the Christmas period, and I will see you next week. Take care. Bye.